Imagine this. You open your eyes, but something feels terribly wrong. The air is thick, damp, sour, and choking. Your breath catches in your throat before you even understand where you are. Your back screams in pain. You shift slightly and instantly regret it. Every joint in your body creaks like old timber under pressure. It's dark, freezing. There's something alive in your blanket, no, on your skin. You slap your leg. Something crunches. You don't even flinch. You're used to it. Welcome to Bavaria. The year is 1387. This isn't a dream. It's your life now. There's no mattress, no pillow, just a collapsing pile of hay that smells like urine, sweat, and soil. You share your bed with lice, fleas, and the odd mouse. You don't scream, not because you're brave, but because you've done this every night of your life. You've forgotten what comfort feels like. Your name is Alaric. You're 23, but you feel older, much older. In your world, 23 is the equivalent of middle age. If you make it to 40, people call you a miracle. The hut you sleep in is one room, barely larger than a horse stall. There are no doors separating the sleeping space from the kitchen. No walls dividing you from your family or the livestock that sleeps inside to keep warm. Your younger brother is snoring beside you, one bare foot half buried in straw. Your grandmother wheezes softly across the room. She's been dying slowly for 4 winters now. No one knows what from, because doctors are a luxury. Mostly, they kill more people than they save. Something scurries under your mat. Rat, maybe. Maybe not. The only light seeps through a crude hole in the wooden roof, a single shaft of blue-gray morning mist. Outside, the village bell begins to clang. Not gently, not melodically. It's a metal scream, a blunt force announcement that the day has begun whether you're ready or not. And you're never ready. You try to stretch. Your spine cracks. Your knees pop. Your muscles lock in protest. The chill slices through your wool blanket like a blade. You haven't bathed in over 2 months. There's no tub, no warm water. You smell like damp sheep, smoke, and something you can't name but recognize as you. You rise, slowly, stepping onto the dirt floor. It's wet. You pray it's water. Your foot sinks slightly into the mud that seeped in overnight. You look up. The thatched roof leaks again. Every winter it gets worse, but patching it would cost 3 chickens and you can't even afford salt. No one says good morning. Mornings aren't something to celebrate. They're something to survive. You begin dressing, or rather, you continue wearing what you've worn for the last 43 days. The same tunic, stiff with old sweat and mud. The same hose, patched and itching with fleas. There's no clean laundry. There's no laundry, period. You'd need firewood to boil water, and firewood costs coin or time in the forest, which is owned by the local lord. Stealing wood could get your hand chopped off. You make do. Your boots are cracked. Your toes are visible. There's a hole in the sole that lets the cold seep in like a curse. You smile at it anyway. It reminds you you're still alive. Your family begins to stir. The cow moves softly in the corner. The baby cries. Your mother is already stoking the fire. The tiny embers from last night, barely warm. She mutters a prayer. Under her breath, one eye swollen from the infection she got weeks ago. You hope the poultice works. You hope it's not fatal. You swallow a lump in your throat. There's no time to feel things. Not here. Not in this life. And yet, every morning, a part of you still hopes. Maybe today will be different. Maybe the rain will stop. Maybe the Baron's men won't show up to collect taxes. You don't have. Maybe your neighbor won't die of fever. Maybe you'll find something. Anything to eat before your stomach eats itself. But you already know the truth. This is your life. This is the beginning of every day in 1387. And there's no escape. Only the endless cycle of labor, cold, hunger, and silence. Still, you rise, because there's work to do, because you were born into this world, because no one will do it for you, and because surviving, even like this, is all you've ever known. If you've made it this far, congratulations. You've just endured a single medieval morning. Now imagine doing it every day. If this story gripped you, even just a little, consider subscribing to this channel. Your support gives us the motivation to keep digging into the brutal, fascinating corners of history that most people never talk about. And trust me, what comes next will only get darker and more human. Now here's a fun challenge to see who's been paying attention. Question time. In 1387 Bavaria, what was most likely to be sleeping in the same room as you at night? A. A pet cat curled up by the fire. B. A cow standing beside your straw bed. Drop your answer or B in the comments below. Let's see how many of you would actually survive a single morning in medieval Europe. The morning cold still lingers in your bones, but your stomach has other plans. Not hunger this time, something worse, more urgent. It's not the kind of feeling you can ignore. Not in 1387 Bavaria, and certainly not in a world that has never heard of plumbing, porcelain, or privacy. You step out of the hut, boots squelching through the muddy path, still slick from last night's rain. The air outside bites harder than it did inside, and you regret not grabbing your scarf. But there's no time. Nature isn't waiting. You head toward the back of your family's narrow lot, behind the woodpile, past the chicken coop, to where the earth sags around a wooden bucket. That's it? That's your toilet? No door, no roof, no dignity? Just a circle of half-rotted fence posts trying to guard your shame from view. You whisper a half-hearted prayer that no one walks by. As you squat, the smell hits first an aggressive slap of rot, fermentation, and something vaguely chemical, like boiled urine left in the sun. The bucket is already half full, and you know it hasn't been emptied in days. No one wants the job, but someone has to do it. And today, that someone is you. There's no wiping with paper. That doesn't exist here. Not even rags. You reach for the bundle of straw tied with twine, stiff and scratchy like the worst possible alternative. You hold your breath. You do what needs to be done, and then comes the real task: disposal. You pick up the bucket carefully, both hands on the handles, warm sloshing inside. A tiny part of you considers slipping and falling, face first, into your own family's filth. That thought alone makes your grip tighten. You carry it to the edge of the main road, if you can call it that. It's a trench of mud and excrement that cuts through the center of the village like an open wound. There are no sewers in your world, no underground tunnels carrying waste away from homes. What you pour into the street stays in the street. With one hand you lift the bucket, with the other you shout, "Aktang untin," a cry that means watch out below. You say it out of habit, not expectation. Nobody ever moves fast enough. The splash is immediate. And worse, it isn't just your waste that flows through the street. It's everyone's. You glance down the road and see it. A slow, thick river of brown, punctuated by goat droppings, fish guts from the market, and gods know what else. Kids splash in it sometimes. So do the dogs. So does that one man with one boot and no shame. This is what runs past your house. What you step over? What you breathe in? This is what leaks into the soil when it rains. This is the backdrop of your life, and this is a good day. Some of the wealthier homes, those closer to the village square, slightly better setups. A wooden bench built over a pit, but even that has no drainage, no privacy, no dignity. People go there to do their business, shoulder to shoulder, whispering awkward greetings and pretending not to hear anything. The baker's wife once tried to install a screen around theirs, hung with fabric and dried herbs. Within a week, the rats had chewed through it. Privacy, like cleanliness, is a fantasy only the dead enjoy. There are rumors that in distant cities, places you've only heard of in drunken tavern stories, there are public bathhouses with tiled floors and hot water. But bathhouses come with their own problems. They're expensive, crawling with disease, and often used for everything except bathing. The church frowns on them. Some say going too often will make your skin weak, or worse, invite demons in through your open pores. Here, in your village, the bath is a barrel. Water fetched by hand from the stream that probably carries more feces than fish. Boiled if you're lucky, cold if you're not. Used by the entire household in turns. You're always last. Your mind drifts to another life, a modern one, where clean water pours from silver faucets, where toilets flush, where soap smells like citrus, and your waste disappears with the push of a button. You shake your head. That world doesn't exist. Not for Alaric. Not in this time. You place the empty bucket beside the fence and cover it with a loose plank. You wash your hands in a trough outside the barn, but it does little. The water is cold, and the dirt is permanent. A rooster watches you with disapproval. You nod solemnly at him. He seems to understand. As you walk back to the house, careful to avoid the worst puddles in the road, you notice your neighbor Gerda arguing with her son. He's refused to take their chamber pot to the street. She waves a wooden spoon like a sword, yelling about shame and smell and divine punishment. You glance away quickly. Everyone has their limits. You pass a girl trying to clean her shoes with a stick. She's 8, maybe 9. Her hands are red with cold, her face smeared with soot. She looks up and smiles. You nod back. Somehow, in the middle of all this waste and filth and stench, she still finds something to smile about. And that, what sticks with you? Not the smell, not the shame, but the persistence of something small, bright, and human. Because even here, in the worst place imaginable to relieve yourself, there's a strange kind of strength in simply enduring. And tomorrow, you'll do it all over again. By the time the first breath of gray dawn settles into your bones, your stomach is already twisting in protest. Not from illness, from hunger, that deep, familiar ache that lives just beneath your ribs, always there, always whispering. It isn't the sharp, sudden pang of missing a meal. It's the slow-burning discomfort of having never really eaten enough to begin with. Inside the hut, the fire has been coaxed back to life, a fragile pulse of warmth that flickers against soot-covered walls. The scent of smoke mingles with something more earthy, more desperate, breakfast, or what passes for it. You sit cross-legged on the dirt floor, across from your mother, who stirs the pot with the reverence of someone feeding a god, not a family. Her hands move mechanically, her expression unreadable, eyes sunken from years of waking before the sun. The pot is blackened, the same one used every day, sometimes multiple times a day. The contents inside have no name, no recipe, just pottage, that eternal stew, a mix of what remains from yesterday and whatever was salvaged from the garden or bartered at market. This morning, it's thin, too thin. You can hear the water sloshing as she stirs. A few shreds of cabbage cling to the surface, maybe a piece of turnip, you can't be sure. The longer you stare, the more it resembles the muddy puddles outside. You lower your head, waiting for your portion like everyone else. Silence fills the space, like fog. Your younger brother shifts beside you, still rubbing sleep from his eyes. Your grandmother coughs once, then again, and again. No one reacts. Coughing is just another soundtrack of daily life. When your bowl is passed to you, it's warm but barely, a shallow scoop, more broth than meal. You take a bite, the wooden spoon pressing against your cracked lips. The texture is thick, but the taste is ... absence, an echo of food. You chew as little as possible, swallowing more out of duty than desire. It fills your stomach, yes, but it doesn't comfort. It doesn't nourish. It just occupies space where hunger lived. You glance down at the bread, if it can still be called that. A heavy chunk, darker than it should be, dotted with something you hope is just burnt grain. You try to break it in half, and it resists you like stone. The crust slices into your palm. You suck your teeth and try again. This time, it cracks with the sound of old wood snapping. You soak it in the pottage, watching it go limp like a defeated soldier. Across the fire, your father mumbles a prayer. It's short, routine, words said not because anyone expects divine intervention, but because they've been said every day for generations. You mouth along, though you don't feel the words anymore. They've long since lost their magic. A small clay cup has passed your way. The drink inside is cloudy, faintly sour, weak ale. Everyone drinks it, even children. It's not for pleasure, not even for a buzz, it's for survival. The water here isn't safe, not even the stream beyond the hill. The beer is brewed light, barely alcoholic, just enough to kill off the worst parasites. You sip it slowly. It tastes like the inside of a wooden bucket, and yet, it's not unpleasant. It's familiar. It reminds you of staying alive. No one speaks while eating, not out of etiquette, just fatigue. Talking wastes energy, and you'll need every ounce of it. Your chores begin as soon as your bowl is empty. There's no break, no sitting around waiting for the day to start. The day started when the bell rang, and it will end when the light fades. Your mind drifts for a moment, something it rarely does, back to the idea of breakfast in another time. You've heard tales, passed down through travelers and gossip, of distant lands where people wake to fresh bread, fruits piled high, warm cheese, roasted meats. Some say there are places where food appears at the pull of a lever, where the smell of roasted coffee fills the air, where butter melts on soft pastries and everything is clean, bright, and warm. You wonder if it's true, but it feels like a fairy tale, like a lie told to make suffering more bearable. So you focus instead on the reality in your hands, a chipped bowl, a lump of bread, and a prayer. The baby begins to fuss, and your mother gently scoops her up, bouncing her softly while trying to coax her into quiet with an old lullaby. Her voice is low, almost a hum. It mixes with the crackling fire and the morning wind that sneaks through the cracks in the walls. You take another bite, and somehow, despite the hunger, despite the bleakness, there's a strange peace in this moment, a stillness, a shared silence that, while not joyful, isn't empty either. It's the silence of survival, of continuing, of enduring together. You finish your meal, the bowl is scraped clean. You pass it to your sister, who wipes it with a strip of cloth, before tucking it back onto the shelf. No water will be wasted on washing it. Not today. Not until the next storm comes. You rise slowly, stomach heavier, but not full. And as you step outside into the mud and wind, you carry the warmth of the fire with you, even if only for a few minutes, because that's all there is in the morning. Not satisfaction, not strength, just enough to keep going. There's no such thing as a wardrobe in your world. No closets filled with options. No decision between what to wear based on weather, mood, or style. In 1399 Bavaria, fashion is a privilege reserved for nobles, merchants, and kings. For you, son of a farmer, survivor of every freezing morning, clothing is not about choice. It's about necessity, and often, endurance. You wake up wearing the same tunic you slept in, the same one you've worn every day for months. It's made from coarse wool, woven by hand, dyed with whatever plants your mother could boil into color. It was once brown, now it's something between ash and soil. The fabric scratches against your skin as you move, like 100 tiny needles. Embedded in the weave, you stopped noticing the irritation long ago. Now it's simply a sensation that reminds you you're alive. Beneath it, you wear a linen shirt if you're lucky. Most days, the linen is stiff with sweat and dirt. On colder mornings, it clings to your back like damp moss. You tie your hose around your waist, woolen leggings that fit unevenly because they were made for someone else. Likely your older cousin, now dead of fever. The legs are too short, one tighter than the other, but they cover enough to be decent. There is no underwear. You wrap a belt around your tunic, a strip of leather softened by years of wear. It holds a small knife in a wooden sheath and a cloth pouch containing exactly nothing, but it's yours, and that matters. The shoes are another story. They're scraps of leather sewn into a vague foot shape, hardened by use and cracked at the toes. Your left shoe has a flap that opens every few steps, like a broken mouth. You tied it shut with a bit of string from a fishing net. Your feet ache constantly. Blisters form, pop, reform. You stopped bleeding from them last summer. Now, they're just raw, and you've started walking differently, not because it helps, but because it's the only way to avoid pain worse than what you've gotten used to. There is no coat, no jacket, just layers. A second tunic sometimes, if it's dry, if your brother isn't already wearing it. In winter, you wrap yourself in whatever you can find: sacks, old wool, sometimes straw tucked beneath your clothes. On market days, you see noble children in fur-lined cloaks. You look away quickly. That kind of warmth isn't meant for you then. There's your head. You tie a strip of cloth around your hair, not for fashion, but to keep the lice from falling into your eyes. Everyone in the village has them. You try to comb them out with a wooden comb heated by the fire. The heat kills some. The rest scurry deeper. Your scalp is a war zone, always itching, always crawling. You scratch until you bleed, then scratch more. No one mentions it. Everyone does it. You remember when you once found a silk scarf in the marketplace. Torn, discarded, foreign. You brought it home like treasure. Your mother turned it into a lining for the baby's swaddle. You didn't mind. It was the softest thing you had ever touched. Dressing in 1399 isn't about looking good. It's about preserving your body from the wind, the cold, the work. But even then, your clothes betray you. They hold the scent of every day you've ever lived. Smoke, sweat, livestock, dirt. No matter how much you try to rinse them in the stream, the smell never leaves. Ashes don't clean, they just mask. And soap, a rare thing, if you can find it. It's harsh, made from animal fat and lye, and leaves your skin raw. But this is your skin now. These clothes, this shell of itchy armor, it becomes part of who you are. They carry the story of your suffering, stitched into every fraying seam. When a tunic tears, it's patched with whatever fabric you can find: some linen, sometimes sackcloth, sometimes a square cut from your grandfather's burial robe. Nothing is wasted, and in some strange, quiet way, there's pride in that, because while nobles parade in embroidered robes and soft leather, you Alaric step out into the day bearing every wound, every stain, every hardship on your back. You don't need silk. You need resilience, and that's something no tailor can sew. The pain started days ago, dull at first, a mild throb tucked behind your right molar, easy enough to ignore amid the grind of daily labor. But now it's grown into something monstrous. Each heartbeat pulses through your jaw. Every chew feels like a blade sliding into bone. You haven't smiled in 2 days, not because there's no reason to, but because you physically can't. You run your tongue along your gums and wince. The swelling is impossible to miss. The taste in your mouth, metallic and sour, is one you've come to dread. And you know, even before the sun rises fully over the Bavarian rooftops, that today is the day. There is no dentist. There is Henrik. Henrik, the barber-surgeon, is a man whose hands have held as many razors as he has bones. He shaves beards, lances boils, sets broken limbs, and pulls teeth, sometimes all in the same hour. His hut sits at the end of the village path, half workshop, half infirmary, fully soaked in the scent of iron and old sweat. You've never been inside. You've only heard stories, screams mostly, the kind that echo even after the door's been shut. But you can't delay. You can't eat, can't sleep, can't focus. The tooth has claimed your every thought, turning even the smallest moments into agony. You knock on Henrik's door with the heel of your hand, jaw clenched tight to keep from crying out. He opens the door with a nod, not needing an explanation. One look at your swollen cheek tells him everything. He gestures inside. You step over the threshold into a room that feels more like a stable than a medical space. Rusted tools hang on the walls. A blood-stained apron slung over a chair. A barrel of cloudy water steaming slightly in the corner. Henrik doesn't ask you to sit. He points to a stool. You obey. The wood creaks beneath you. Your palms sweat. You spot the tool heel. Use a pair of iron pliers blackened from age. Not sterilized, not clean, just old and lethal. He reaches for a strip of leather and offers it. Bite, he says simply. You hesitate. It'll hurt worse if you scream. You take the strap, press it between your teeth, and then you realize it's pressing right against the sore tooth. The contact alone sends lightning through your skull. You almost drop it. Henrik braces your head with one hand. His fingers are rough, calloused from a life of crude healing. With the other, he positions the pliers. There's no countdown, no sedative, no chance to breathe. The pressure comes first, cruel, crushing squeeze. Then, suddenly, the world narrows to a single flash of pain, white-hot and absolute. You can't hear yourself scream, but you know you do. Something wet splashes on your chin, blood. You can feel it dripping down your neck. He yanks again. Something gives you nearly fall off the stool, chest heaving, ears ringing. The pain is unreal, your body reeling from the violence of it. But it's over. He shows you the tooth, a rotten, blackened shard, clinging to the pliers like a cursed relic. The root is twisted. It shouldn't have been in your head anymore. It shouldn't have been part of you. And now it's not. You lean forward and spit. Blood hits the dirt floor. Henrik pats your shoulder once briefly, not kindly, but not cruelly either. It's the most comfort he'll offer. He tells you to rinse with ale and to avoid cold water for 3 days. You nod, or try to. Your jaw no longer seems connected to your thoughts. You stumble out into the light, dazed and shaking. The village spins a little as you walk, one hand pressed to your face. You feel hollowed out, emptied, but beneath the pain, beneath the shock, there's something else, a quiet, simmering relief. The ache that ruled your every waking moment is gone. Replaced, for now, with silence. This is healing in your world. Brutal, bloody, immediate. There are no gentle recoveries, no anesthesia, no clean rooms or post-op instructions. There's only survival and adaptation. You endure because you have no other choice. You recover not because someone tended to you, but because your body fights hard enough to make it through. By nightfall, the swelling will still be there. The bleeding will slow. Tomorrow, you'll chew with the other side of your mouth, and maybe in a few days, you'll forget the pain. Not completely, but enough to keep going. And that's all that matters. By the time the morning mist fades and the frost begins to melt from the straw roofs, Alaric is already at work. There's no official start time, no bells to signal the beginning of a shift. The rhythm of labor here is determined by light, weather, and the unrelenting demands of survival. In 1399, work is not a part of life, is life. There are no weekends, no breaks, no margins of luxury between necessity and exhaustion. The earth is still hard from the cold. Mud clings to your boots like lead, and the wooden hoe in your hands feels heavier with every swing. You're not planting today, you're digging. An irrigation trench needs widening, and the soil is stubborn. It resists the blade, like it resents you. Every thrust sends shockwaves up your arms, your shoulders already burning less than an hour in. Beside you, your younger brother tries to match your pace. He's only 12, but there's no such thing as childhood here. Not in a world where every pair of hands is the difference between hunger and a full winter. He doesn't complain. He just breathes heavily, one side of his face smeared with dirt, eyes already hardened by years of watching people break beneath the weight of necessity. A few yards away, Your mother tends to the goats while keeping an eye on the stew pot hanging over a smoky fire. Your sister is patching clothes on a stone bench, fingers red from cold and worn fabric. No one is idle. Idleness is a luxury you can't afford. The sun creeps higher, offering more light than warmth. Sweat forms at your brow despite the chill, dripping into your eyes as you wipe it away with a dirty sleeve. Your hands blister easily now. They've lost the calluses from the spring, worn down by the harvest and by too many hours spent without rest. There's no such thing as sick leave. No one asks how you're feeling. If you're strong enough to hold a tool, you work. If you're not, you're replaced by someone who can. The land demands it. The seasons don't pause. Crops don't care if you're tired. If you don't plant, you don't eat. If you don't mend the fence, your sheep wander. If you don't dig the trench, your fields drown or dry. There's a moment around midday when you pause, not because you're allowed, but because your muscles stop obeying. You drop the hoe and stretch your arms, back cracking, fingers trembling. A nearby tree offers a few minutes of shade. You sit beneath it, drawing your knees up to your chest and breathing slowly, trying to ignore the burn in your thighs. The food in your satchel is simple bread, tough and cold, with a smear of lard. If you're lucky, you chew it slowly, savoring even its blandness. There's no rush. You know the next break won't come until sundown. As you eat, you watch others. The old man from the neighboring farm walks with a limp now, dragging his bad leg like a forgotten tool. A girl your age sharpens a sickle on a rock, her eyes empty. Across the road, a boy who once ran barefoot through the village now hauls water buckets heavier than he is. Everyone works, even the priest helps with the harvest when hands run short. The nobility, distant and unseen, have their own lands and their own laborers. But here, on the outskirts, survival is democratic. Misery is evenly shared. Work isn't just about food, it's about taxes too. The baron expects his share, no matter the weather, no matter how thin your crops. If the yield is short, you pay, in livestock, or cloth, or children. Not always directly, but when families disappear, people know why, and they don't ask questions. By late afternoon, your body is a contradiction, numb and burning, empty and heavy. You keep moving not because you want to, but because stopping means falling behind. Falling behind means hunger. Hunger leads to sickness. And sickness, here, is just another word for death. As the sun begins to dip, the sky painting everything in muted gold, you finish the trench. The lines are uneven, the corners too shallow, but it will carry water. It will keep the barley alive. You stand, staring at your work, chest rising and falling. And you feel something close to pride, not joy, not contentment, but pride, because, in a world that offers little reward, doing what must be done is a triumph of its own. You gather your tools and walk home slowly, dust rising with each step, muscles humming with fatigue. Your sister waves as you approach. Your mother ladles broth into wooden bowls. The baby cries. The goat escapes again, and you smile. Just barely. Because today, like yesterday, you endured, and tomorrow, you will again. In 1399 Bavaria, the weather isn't something you check, it's something you survive. For Alaric, the sky is both a god and a tyrant. It decides whether your crops grow or fail, whether your body heals or breaks, whether your children live or starve. There is no separation between man and nature here. Nature presses against your skin at all times. It lives in your breath, in the way your bones ache, in the decisions you make before your first step out the door. Winter is a season that tests the limits of the human body. The cold doesn't just bite, it devours. It settles into your lungs and lives there, turning every exhale into a visible plea for mercy. Your hut, built of wood and thatch, does little to keep the frost out. The wind whistles through the walls at night, wrapping around your limbs as you sleep in damp wool. You wake up stiff, brittle. Your fingers move slower. Your nose runs constantly. Some mornings, the water in the wooden pail beside your bed is frozen solid, a perfect mirror of your circumstances. You burn wood sparingly. There is never enough. Every log is a calculated sacrifice, and once you've burned through the pile, you're faced with the choice: steal from the Lord's forest or freeze. You know what happened to your cousin when he was caught cutting trees that didn't belong to him. They found his boots still hanging in the branches, as a warning. No one needs reminding. When it snows, the village turns quiet, eerily so. The usual sounds of children, animals, work all fade beneath the weight of white silence. And though it looks beautiful, snow is deadly. It covers everything, hides the holes in the path, turns slush into ice and men into corpses. You've buried friends who never came back from morning chores. Frostbite creeps in unnoticed until a toe turns black. Then it's too late. There is no cure but cutting. And then, when the sun returns, it brings no relief. Summer in Bavaria is just as cruel. The heat settles like a curse, suffocating everything in its grasp. The air thickens, unmoving, filled with the scent of sweat, dung, and rot. There are no windows to open. The single door to your hut stays cracked, more for the sake of hope than ventilation. You sweat through every layer of wool and linen, your skin sticky with labor and helplessness. There is no escaping it. Not indoors, not outdoors, not even in your dreams. The animals suffer too. You've seen chickens collapse in the midday sun, goats pawing at dry soil, looking for shade that doesn't exist. Flies swarm in clouds, biting exposed skin until it bubbles and weeps. And then come the midges, the mosquitoes, the hornets. You swat, scratch, slap hand, still, they feast. The itch never leaves you. It's as constant as your hunger. Rain comes like a blessing, and then, a punishment. The first drops cool your skin, give life to the fields. But it never ends there. The storms roll in without mercy, turning roads into rivers, soaking your only tunic until it clings to your bones. Lightning cracks the sky, thunder rattles the walls of your hut. Sometimes you fear the roof will collapse. Sometimes it does. You once saw a tree split in half, the top flung clear across the barley field. For days afterward, no one walked near it. Superstition told you it had been touched by God or cursed by something worse. The wet brings more than flood, it brings illness. Children cough all night. Your grandmother's joints swell with each passing cloud. Mold creeps into corners, black and green, smelling of damp death. Nothing dries. Everything grows heavier with water, with mildew, with fatigue. There are no forecasts, no warnings, no safe months. Every season is war. Spring teases you with blossoms, and then kills your hopes with frost. Autumn lures you with golden fields, only to remind you that every harvest signals another winter to survive. Alaric doesn't hate the weather. He fears it. He respects it. It's not an inconvenience, it's an opponent. And unlike the baron, or the tax collector, or even sickness, you can't reason with the sky. It doesn't care if you're tired, or careful, or brave. It doesn't care who you are at all. And still, every morning, you rise and open the door. You step outside. You face it. Not because it gets easier, but because not facing it isn't an option. Because no matter how unbearable the weather may be, you bear it. You always bear it. It begins as a small chill, nothing alarming, just a shiver beneath Alaric's wool tunic, easily blamed on the damp. But by dusk, it blooms into something deeper, more ominous. His muscles ache, his thoughts fog, and a fever starts to rise beneath his skin like fire under ice. By the time the sun disappears, he can barely stand. The world tilts. The hut feels impossibly loud, the baby crying, the goats stomping, the crackle of firewood, but distant too, like he's drifting outside his own body. In 1399, Falling ill is more than misfortune. It's a gamble, and the odds are rarely in your favor. Alaric lies curled on the straw bed, sweat pooling beneath him, though the cold is biting. His mother wipes his forehead with a cloth dipped in boiled rosemary, whispering prayers under her breath. His breath grows shallow. The heat inside him climbs. There is no doctor to call. The nearest apothecary is 2 villages away, and even if they could reach him, there's no coin for tinctures. So they send for Marta, the village's midwife and healer, a woman rumored to know both the language of herbs and the will of spirits. She arrives just past midnight, a crooked silhouette wrapped in shawls, her satchel heavy with glass jars, dried plants, and things Alaric has only seen in nightmares. Marta kneels beside him and stares into his eyes with a gaze that seems to cut through layers of flesh. "He's burning too fast," she says simply, placing a palm against his chest. Her hands smell of garlic, mugwort, and earth. She mutters something in a tongue he doesn't recognize, then begins unpacking her tools: bitter brews, strange roots, cloths soaked in vinegar. She rubs a mixture of mustard seed and ash on his feet, binds herbs beneath his arms, and chants softly, rhythmically, like a lullaby. But the worst is yet to come. She reaches into her bag and pulls out a small jar of leeches. The room stiffens. Even Alaric's fevered brain understands what's coming. His mother turns away. "This will draw out the heat," Marta says, "or what's left of his humors." The leeches are placed carefully on his neck, on his forearm, behind his knee. The sensation is not pain, but violation, a crawling pressure that steals what little strength he has left. His blood trickles slowly into the jar beneath him. With every drop, the light in the room seems dimmer. No one speaks for a long time. At one point, Alaric opens his eyes and sees Marta sprinkling ash around the hearth, whispering to it like a priest. She blows a handful of dust over his chest. Whether it's a remedy or a ritual, he doesn't know. And at that moment, he doesn't care, because in this world, medicine and magic are the same. There are no clean divisions. There's no hospital ward where reason reigns. Here, healing comes with prayers and poultices, with sacred herbs and desperate faith. You drink boiled nettles to calm a cough. You wear charms of iron to keep the spirits at bay. A black cat in your path might be death. A dream of birds could mean recovery. No one knows for sure, but everyone believes something. By the 3rd day, the fever breaks. Alaric wakes, drenched in sweat, chest sore, limbs trembling, but alive. The leeches are gone. The jars are empty. His lips are cracked, and his vision blurred, but his skin is no longer burning. The first face he sees is his sister's, smiling faintly as she hands him a cup of broth so weak it tastes of nothing. But it's warm, it's real. He drinks. Marta is gone before he can thank her, as if she were never there at all, just an echo, a shadow. Her work finished, her price unspoken. There's no recovery time, no rest period. The next morning, he's back in the field, shovel in hand. His legs are like wet twigs, his thoughts slower than usual, but no one asks if he's ready. The land waits for no man, not even one who brushed death with the back of his hand. Illness in the Middle Ages doesn't change the rhythm of life. It interrupts, yes, threatens, yes, but it doesn't stop the world from turning. You fall, you pray, you survive if you're lucky, and then you rise. And if you don't, someone else takes your place. Alaric survived. This time. By the time darkness settles fully across the village, dinner has become less of a meal and more of a ritual, one final act of endurance before sleep. One last test for the body and the spirit. Alaric sits cross-legged on the packed dirt floor of his family's one-room hut, staring into the glow of a single candle stub flickering in a shallow dish of animal fat. The shadows it casts are long and twitching, like ghosts dancing along the smoke-stained walls. The scent of the stew is faint, thin enough that the fire's smoke almost overpowers it. Whatever went into the pot today was likely foraged rather than bought or grown wild nettles. Maybe a carrot too soft for the market, a bone stripped clean yesterday but boiled again for flavor. The broth is more memory than substance, but it's warm, and that counts for something. On rare nights, the stew tastes of salt, a pinch saved for occasions like this, cold, silent, and hungrier than usual. Alaric takes his portion and breathes in the steam. It fogs the wooden spoon briefly, then disappears like hope rising from a tired body. He tastes it slowly, trying not to show disappointment. Across from him, his mother feeds the baby with one hand, while tearing a scrap of bread with the other bread, so dense it resists her fingers. The loaf is darker than it should be, flecked with something green and fuzzy, mold. She scrapes it off with the back of her knife and keeps eating. They all do. There is no room for disgust in a life like this. Hunger always wins. His father eats in silence, eyes distant, mind likely on tomorrow's labor or next month's taxes. His sister, too tired to speak, stares into her bowl as though looking through it. The only sounds are chewing, the occasional cough, and the soft clinking of wood on clay. Then it happens. A sudden shriek from the corner of the room breaks the quiet. Alaric's younger brother jumps up, face contorted, pointing to the table. A rat fat and unbothered scurries across the boards, knocking over a ladle. It disappears as quickly as it came, vanishing into the same hole it always uses. No one chases it. No one screams after it. This isn't the first time. It won't be the last. Everyone laughs nervously, but it fades fast. It always does. Alaric glances around the room. The candle burns lower. The fire has dimmed to coals. Insects flit near the light, drawn to the only warmth they know. Somewhere beneath his tunic, he feels a tickle. Lice, probably, or fleas. He scratches absent-mindedly. Everyone is infested with something. The parasites are constant companions, hiding in the seams of clothes, the folds of bedding, the cracks in the walls. You don't fight them. You just learn to live with them. Dinner ends, not with fullness, but with quiet. Bowls are scraped clean, not because anyone is satisfied, but because nothing can be spared. Every crumb matters. The dishes are wiped with cloths instead of washed. Water is too precious to waste on cleaning. The family begins to settle in for the night. Some lie near the fire. Others lean against the walls, wrapped in blankets that smell of old wool and older memories. The baby cries briefly, then drifts off. Alaric lies on his back, staring at the rafters, watching a spider move across a beam. He doesn't flinch. Even the spiders are just part of the home now. There's a strange peace in this moment. Not comfort, but resignation. The kind of stillness that follows exhaustion, when even your thoughts are too tired to argue. Tomorrow will come. The work will continue. The hunger will return. But for now, there is warmth. There is family. There is the knowledge that, for one more day, they have survived together. And in 1399, that's everything. The last light of day has faded, and the stillness that descends over the village feels deeper than silence. It's the kind of quiet that carries the weight of things unsaid, fears unspoken. Alaric stands just outside the door of the hut, staring into the night as the wind stirs the trees and the air grows colder by the breath. Stars begin to pierce through the haze, distant and silent witnesses to everything below. The world feels too large and too small at the same time. The chapel bell tolls from the hill, one long low note. Evening prayers. He knows he should go. Everyone does, even if faith feels less like belief these days, and more like survival instinct. The church is small, a crooked structure of stone and timber, the walls damp with moss, the benches splintered and worn. Still, it stands. Still, the people gather inside. The glow of tallow candles creates a fragile warmth. The air smells of wax, wet stone, and human breath. Families huddle together on the hard benches, whispering half-formed prayers and crossing themselves with shaking hands. The priest, an aging man with eyes that have seen too much and a voice gone hoarse from years of sermons, speaks softly tonight. His words are not of hope, not really, not the bright, triumphant promises of salvation you might expect. They are quieter, grounded, shaped by the same pain everyone carries. He speaks of mercy, of forgiveness, of holding on to light even when there is none. He reminds them that fear is not a sin, that even Christ wept in the garden. Alaric listens, not because he's certain of heaven, but because he needs to believe in something, anything. When the prayers end, no one moves right away. There's comfort in the presence of others, in the rhythm of voices joined in need. Eventually, people drift out in pairs, wrapped in cloaks and silence. The path back is dim. The moon, if it shows itself at all, hides behind clouds, swollen with rain. Back in the hut, the family prepares for sleep again. It is a quiet process, efficient and familiar. The fire is coaxed into embers. The youngest are tucked close to warmth. The blankets are shared. Alaric takes his usual place near the wall, body curved against the chill. His sister hums an old tune, soft and lilting, not quite a lullaby but close. Their mother whispers another prayer, one not from the church but from her own childhood, passed down like a relic, a ward against nightmares, a plea to wake up again. Alaric stares into the dark, blinking slowly. His body aches, not with any one injury, but with the slow decay of a hard life. His hands are cracked, his feet raw, his back twisted by years of labor. He's 23, but already feels the wear of generations. And yet, tonight like every night before, he is still here. He doesn't know what tomorrow will bring. Maybe sickness, maybe fire, maybe the Baron's men will ride through demanding more than the village can give. Maybe someone he loves won't wake up. These are not just fears, they are expectations. But for now, none of that matters. Tonight, the stars are above him. The breath of his family surrounds him, and the world, though harsh and unforgiving, has let him live one more day. He closes his eyes, and in this final hour, before dreams come, and the darkness deepens, Alaric does what he's done every night of his life. He hopes, he fears, he endures. Alaric's journey through the harsh, unrelenting world of 14th century Bavaria is not one of glory, triumph, or dramatic rebellion. It is the quiet, grinding march of survival. From the moment he wakes up each day, cold and aching in a straw bed infested with lice, to the moment he closes his eyes to the echoing sounds of wind and fear. His life is a series of battles, some small, some monumental, all unending. We walked with him through muddy alleys, overflowing with waste, where the concept of hygiene was little more than wishful thinking. We felt the sting of hunger as he ate thin broth and crusts of bread scraped clean of mold. We stood by as he faced the medieval terror of toothache and the brutal cure delivered by a barber-surgeon whose tools were as crude as his compassion. We watched as he dressed in threadbare wool and leather that never kept out the cold, his skin crawling with parasites he could never be rid of. He worked in the fields from dawn to dusk, driven not by ambition, but by necessity. His body was his only tool, and every day it wore down just a little more. The weather didn't pity him, it punished him. Burning summers, bitter winters, storms that destroyed more than they ever nourished. He lived through all of it, not because he had a choice, but because there was no alternative. Even sickness was not a cause for pause, it was another part of the cycle. Fever came like a whisper and left either silence or scars. There were no doctors, no certainty, just folk remedies and whispered prayers. Somehow, Alaric lived. When many others didn't, he endured, in the quiet glow of candlelight, over bowls of hot water masquerading as dinner. Alaric found not comfort, but connection. The parasites crawling in his bedding, the rats sprinting across the floor, they were companions just as much as his siblings were. He didn't shudder anymore. That's how deep survival ran in his blood. It replaced fear with familiarity, It turned horror into habit. And then, in the final hours of the night, as faith met fear and wrapped him in a blanket of uncertainty, Alaric would whisper his prayers half for God, half for himself. Not for prosperity, not for happiness, but for one more day, one more morning to rise, one more night to endure. That's what made him powerful, not riches, not rank, but resilience. A resilience forged, not by inspiration, but by the weight of necessity. That is the legacy of those who lived ordinary, brutal, forgotten lives, in times when existence itself was a miracle. So what can we take from this? In our modern world, where discomfort often comes in the form of a slow Wi-Fi connection or a missed coffee order, it's easy to lose perspective. We scroll through highlight reels of curated lives, measuring our happiness against illusions, forgetting that comfort has not always been humanity's default setting. Alaric's life reminds us of something painfully real, how deeply human it is to suffer, to keep going, to find meaning not in success, but in survival. The greatest strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a silent hand reaching for a wooden spoon after 12 hours of back-breaking labor. Sometimes it's the decision to wake up and work, even when your body is broken. And sometimes it's just the act of enduring in a world that gives you every reason to quit. Apply this lesson to your life not as a call to romanticize suffering, but as a challenge to reframe it. The next time you're overwhelmed, ask yourself, what would Alaric do with what you have? Could he survive a day in your life, and how would you survive in his? We live in an age of privilege, one that those before us could not have imagined. We have medicine, clean water, warm homes, choices. But we also carry the same hearts, the same hopes, the same fears. If Alaric, with nothing but strength and spirit, could face each day, maybe so can we. Now I'd love to hear from you. What part of Alaric's life resonated with you the most? Was there a moment that struck you, stayed with you, maybe even changed the way you look at your own life? Share your thoughts in the comments, a single sentence, a reflection, or even a story of your own. Let's create a space where history connects us across time. And if this journey moved you, taught you something, or simply made you stop and think, please consider subscribing to this channel. Your support gives us the fuel to bring more hidden human stories from the past to life. There's so much more to explore, and we want to do it with you. Until then, stay curious, and never forget how strong you already are.